Thank you for listening to the latest episode of Capital Conflab. From rugby and football to korfball and kabaddi, we are here to take you through the very best of sport the wonderful city of Cardiff has to offer. So sit back, turn up the volume, and let us take you through the next hour here on Capital Conflab.
Well, thank you for listening to this week's podcast. Today, me and Phil are not really going to talk much at the start because this is a special episode with three big guests for the hockey. Are you excited for this, Phil?
God, I love the hockey. It's I appreciate that you've humoured me this week to some extent with the hockey. It's through my work has become something I've loved and grown to love, as you'll probably see in this episode. It's a great sport. I mean, have you learned anything whilst we've gone through?
Definitely learned a lot this week about hockey. I knew bits and bobs of it, but never really watched it or got into it. But definitely this week, it's got me to get into the sport now, which is the whole idea of this podcast was just to learn new things, and this week I definitely did.
We've already been in touch with the Merlins this week. I'm not sure if you've spotted that they got in touch with us again about going down to what they called Merlin's Field when this is all over. So we've got a whole host of sports that we're going to be attempting, probably poorly, I imagine, after lockdown.
Yeah, we'll be very busy, put it that way, after all this.
Yeah, not going to have any free time once this is all done. But I'm looking forward to that nonetheless. We've obviously recorded these chats with our three guests a bit earlier in the week. So if you're wondering why in the podcast we've not mentioned the Stephen Dixon signing, which has happened on Friday, which is great news. Third season at the Devils, had a brilliant year last year, scoring 20 goals. Only our guest today, Joey Haddad, upped him in terms of goals. So brilliant to see that he's re-signed. And of course, we had the Champions Hockey League draw on Wednesday. So the Devils are back. They're off to Sweden. I've been trying to look at travel arrangements. It doesn't seem like the easiest place to get into in the world, Karlstad. I think all three of our guests talk about the CHL at one point or another and how great an experience it's been. So our first guest up, we have Icetime TV's and Chasing the Pucks, Oliver Hampson, who, if you don't know, has been doing the commentary for the Devils for this will be going into a third season now. We have Joey Haddad, of course, after his re-signing, is back at the club for another year and was just brilliant to talk to, wasn't he, mate?
Definitely brilliant. Well, nicest man you ever meet. Well, I spoke to him, very down to earth and easy to talk to.
Yeah, absolutely. And then finally, at the end of the episode, we have one of the owners. Obviously, there's a whole host of them, but Steve King has kindly joined us for this week's podcast. A huge fan of just hockey in general, but obviously has grown to love the Devils since he first joined. Talks about his favourite moments and also talks about the league, which has just ended. Has a fair few opinions, I think it's fair to say.
Just a bit.
Yeah, just a few. But that is at the end. We've got two guests lined up before him. First up, big thank you to all of them before we start, actually. Big thank you to Ollie. Big thanks to Joey. Big thanks to Steve. But first up, we spoke to Icetime TV's Ollie Hampson just to get the lowdown on the Devils in the last few years. How long have you been covering the Devils?
So I started covering them with Icetime TV. I'm heading into my third year now. But I've done a little bit of media work through writing for the maths program for coming on 6-7 years maybe. But I've been following the team since the mid-90s.
So you've seen the best and the worst, I guess, of the club.
More or less.
Obviously, our guest this week, Joey Haddad, is part of that core group which joined 7 years ago with a handful of others. How big have they been? How have you seen a change since sort of the new regime, the new takeover? How does that compare to the history?
It's been absolutely massive in terms of the recent history. If you look back to the 2013-14 season, at the end of that, no one really knew what the future of the club was. There was fans who weren't going to renew their season tickets. They didn't want really anything to do with it. And then as soon as it was announced that there was a new ownership group with Todd Kelman coming in, Andrew Lord staying on as player coach, it really instilled that mentality amongst the fan base where they're thinking, you know what, there's actually a lot of promise to it. So when they brought in these guys who were relatively unknown, you're kind of thinking, let's see what this is. You had an expectation that they would be a competitive team. I don't think anyone really expected them to go out and win a trophy in their first season. And to have guys like Joey Haddad, who's back now, Joey Martin as well, who's the captain, have those guys here year in, year out, giving their all. They've been two of the biggest driving forces in terms of the team's success over the last 7 years.
Has the sort of the style of hockey, I guess, changed under Andrew Lord?
I think it's a mixture of the style changing and also the way the game's played over here now. It's a lot more about the speed and skill aspect of it, whereas about 10 years ago there was still a bit more emphasis on the physicality of the game. Whereas now you see with some of the guys that Andrew Lord's got, he's got big body guys like that. He can throw hits if he needs to, but his skill set is what really sets him apart, and his ability to use his body to create space for himself. So it's more about just refining those details that they've really put an emphasis on since Andrew Lord became the head coach. And I think that it has made for quite an exciting brand of hockey as well.
Andrew Lord touches upon it every time I speak to him. They say that the league, in terms of its competitiveness, is getting more and more every season. The gap in quality between the best and the worst is smaller than ever. I mean, that's got to be as brilliant for British hockey and the league itself.
Yeah, it's absolutely huge. You can see that from this season as well. Last year, it was more or less a two-horse race between Belfast and Cardiff. This year, when the season got cancelled, there was still 5 teams that were in with a real chance of winning. You had Cardiff up there, Sheffield, Belfast, Nottingham, Coventry as well, who've been a little bit down over recent years, but they've really resurged. And Coventry are a good example in terms of how it's benefited the British game, because they've got a decent number of import players, but their leading guy this year was Luke Ferrara, a guy from, I think he's from Peterborough.
Yeah.
He's a British guy who's really benefited from a coach who's patient with him, allowed him to really develop his own game, and then take it from there. I think with what the league's doing now, it's not rushing British players into the lineup. It's allowing them that time to mature. It's not throwing guys in who are like 16, 17 years old. You have guys who've been in the league now who are Brits. They've been around about 10 years. Ross Venus is one in Coventry. I think he's about 25. He's been in the league for 10 years. But now you're not seeing that as much because you have the ability now to get a competitive team. You have more professional coaching structures in terms of the training, which is going hand in hand with making the on-ice product of the Elite League really competitive. It's increasing the level of the Brits we already have, and also it's giving the young Brits, the next generation of British players, opportunities to grow and become better than they already are.
You just have to look at the record in the CHL as well. Cardiff, whilst were in the end beaten quite well by Frölunda for 2 periods, really held their own against the team that went on to be European champions.
The thing with that as well is if you look at the way Frölunda started the CHL last year, if they won their first 2 games, the Devils probably would have progressed out of the next round. It was because Frölunda started so slowly, they had to make up that ground in the 5th and 6th game of the group stage. So that's a team, they've won 4 CHL titles now. They don't mess about. They know how to play hockey. So it was just a shame that they hadn't done the legwork earlier on. But the Devils, that was a tough group. They've had 3 tough groups now. And they've held their own. And so have other teams. Nottingham advanced the next round a couple of years ago. Belfast, they did great in their first season. So it's also, in terms of how the British game's advancing, it's getting a lot more recognition and respect from Europe right now.
I know how most Champions League works. There's sort of a coefficient which allows teams from certain leagues that more get in from Sweden, for example, than in the British League. Similarly, in the Football's Champions League, more get in from the Premier League than the Swedish League. How much further does the British League have to advance to get more teams in the CHL each year?
It's getting close to where there could be a second spot. There was a couple of years ago when there was more teams in the CHL, but I think the latest rankings they had, they were the 8th ranked league after what the Giants and the Devils did this year, so they climbed the table with how well they performed. But if you look at around the CHL, obviously Sweden, Finland, Czech Republic, Germany, they have like the most spots. Austria have got a decent number of spots as well, and right now you could probably say that some of the top teams in the Elite League would match up quite well against the middle to bottom table teams in Austria. So with the continued growth, that's going to make it so those two leagues are a lot more comparable, and that could then mean that the CHL is thinking, you know what, let's get a second British team involved again.
Where did your love of hockey come from? Obviously, it's mainly a North American sport. Where did it first start?
So I don't actually remember my first game. It was in the mid-90s sometime. My mum had a season ticket, so she used to just take me along when she couldn't get a babysitter, and eventually I started actually paying attention to what was going on. So it was around the mid-90s that I started getting into it, and I just stayed involved with it from there. What really helped it take off in terms of how much I'm into it is around 2012, 2013, I actually got a job at the ice rink, so I was surrounded by it all the time. And I was doing my journalism degree as well, and I wanted to focus more on sports, and I thought it's more of a niche sport, my work will stand out, so I started covering it a lot more. And it's really in the last 7 to 8 years, it's like completely taken off with how much it more or less controls my life, I guess.
This season was obviously unfortunately cut short. With there's a lot more important things going on in the world right now than ice hockey and sport as a whole. But should the season have continued, I think a lot of Cardiff fans would be under the impression that they'd have gone on to win the league. Would you agree?
Yeah, because I think the way that the season went for the Devils, there was a lot of injuries. Joey Martin missed a considerable amount of time. Evan Mosey had just come back after missing the entire season. It looked as though they had the chemistry going, they had the right balance of the lines, and they also looked healthier. So I think that if it was able to resume, they probably would have taken that momentum and just carried on towards the end of the season. They had 3 games in hand and they were a point clear. So I think that they were in the driver's seat, and after last year, I think it was a case of they weren't going to let it slip away again.
Were you at Coventry for the season before that final game?
I wasn't. No.
No, I'm not sure if you're aware of this. In the season previous, the Devils were on course to win the league, and they had to beat Coventry, Coventry had a brilliant second half to this season, but last season were poorer. I think it's fair to say. I don't think that's disrespectful to the Coventry team. And they went to Coventry on the final day of the season. All they had to do was win to win the league, and they lost. And Belfast won to pip them on the very far. It was the ice hockey equivalent of that Aguero goal for Man City.
Yeah.
It was.
That's devastating.
Yeah, some of the pictures you see of the fans in Coventry, it just shows how much that hurt for them. So I think it was kind of short-lived, the pain, because they just went on to win the playoffs title instead.
That's exactly what I was just about to ask. That, to me, regardless of whatever sport and however much you know about ice hockey, to lose the league, in such devastating fashion, to then, it's a matter of weeks. 2 weeks later, go to Nottingham to play the team that just beat you, with all their momentum and spirits high in the final, and to pull out one of the best games of hockey, not necessarily high scoring, it was only 2-1, but one of the best performances of the season. That takes a serious amount of grit and, just sheer determination from the team.
There's a lot of mental toughness involved, and I think that's something that Andrew Lloyd instills really well in his players. I spoke to Mike McNamee a few weeks ago, and he said that the one thing he loved about this team this year is that they were never out of games. They could be having a poor game, but they weren't out of it. And you saw that in, I think, November time. They were 3-0 down against Belfast. They were playing atrociously, and they managed to force overtime and tie it at 3-3. Yeah, okay, it was only 10 minutes of that game where they were on, doing well, but they managed to find that bit to bite back, and that's something that the teams have done for a while under Andrew Lloyd. So I think that, Ben Bounds in that playoff final, he had an absolutely superb game. Gleason Fournier was unbelievable with his goal. It was just a lot of players who, they took what happened 2 weeks ago. They didn't forget about it. They had it in the back of their mind as motivation, and they used that going forward. And I think that's something that they do really well, instilling in players to know that, remember your losses, because they'll make the wins a lot more sweet.
As I said, Haddad is our guest on this week. You mentioned how his skill is more than just his physicality. How important is he, and how brilliant was he this year?
He was unbelievable. I think what surprised me, and I think surprised a few people, is he missed a lot of time towards the end of last season. And I think everyone was kind of thinking, how healthy is he going to be? Is he going to be carrying a knock, or is they kind of slowed him down? And he came out with his best season ever this season. He couldn't stop scoring. His strength was better than it ever has been, because that's what's really set him apart, is his strength in his legs. Whenever he's got the puck in the corner, if you're trying to get it off him, it's so hard to try and move him. He's so solid, and he manages just to hold onto the puck so well, and he managed to do that even better than he ever has, coming off a nerve injury from last season. But it was just, his shot was accurate, he was shooting at a high percentage, he was getting the right looks, the team knew to look to him, especially on the power play. He was just, and I think as well, because Joey Martin was out, they needed someone to step up, and he took that and just ran with it.
Those two seem like such good friends on and off the ice, don't they?
Yeah, they're both really, really good guys. Joey Martin, he's one of the nicest people you ever meet, and Joey Haddad, I don't think I've ever seen him in a bad mood either.
Always
smiling.
Always smiling, always happy. I think that says a lot about the club as well. The mentality and the mood down there is always positive. It's grown massively, not just the club, but its size and scope in Cardiff is going up and up and up. There's a bus that goes past my house every day, which has got the logo plastered on the side of it, as well as the Bluebirds and the Blues. How big do you think it can get in the city?
I think if it carries on the way it's going, it's not just in Cardiff, it's in terms of every city that has a team in this league, it can start to grow to be quite a big sport. You think of the Viola Arena right now, it's got 3,000 seats. If it continues to grow, they may need to think of expanding, because they're selling that out on a regular basis. The sport itself is gaining a lot of popularity. The league is one of the fastest growing sports leagues in the UK right now in terms of its digital and social reach. I just think that, it sounds a bit cliche, but with the Cardiff Devils and the Elite League, the sky's really the limit. They can grow as much as they want to grow, and the club are making steps to ensure that they're getting involved in community projects in terms of the players visiting schools. They've got really good social media output as well, so they're trying to grow their brand, become aware, and I think what goes hand in hand with that is when you have a winning team, people are going to want to go see them.
There's not many sports that I can think of which have the sort of level of success and the connection with the fan base in terms of the players going out and chatting with fans and, after games. There's not much like that in sport ever, is there, worldwide?
No, it's really unique. I think it's unique to British hockey especially as well. You think about it, on like a Sunday game, for example, the players, they may come up to the bar, their family will be there, they'll have a drink there, but they're always willing to chat to fans. The club's always put on really good events for fans and players to interact. You have a lot of access to players. Whether or not that's always a good thing, I don't know. But you have a lot where, the players can see the fans take the team very seriously. They take it to heart. For some people, it is more or less their lives. And the players can see that with all this interaction, and they really take that on board whenever they're coming into play. They really want to perform well, not just so they can win trophies and have a good resume, but also because they want that building to be loud. They want that building to be rocking for them and cheering them on.
It's a great atmosphere down there as well, isn't it? Even if it's a sellout, all the better. But it's never empty in there.
No, it's always really, really well sold. Midweek games are more difficult to sell, obviously, just because it's midweek. But the start of the season has a lot of excitement, and that just grows throughout the season. You have the game start filling up more and more throughout the season. By December time, you're getting constant sellouts. You're getting sellouts in 5-10 games in a row. It's a lot of excitement, and like I said, that goes hand in hand with the fact that it is a successful team. It is a competitive team that plays an exciting style of hockey, and I think that a lot of clubs around the country now are doing the same. They're playing an exciting brand of hockey that has a mixture of skill and flair as well as physicality, and for people who don't know the sport, it is a really, really good night out to go and see, because you get to see a new sport that you've heard all about. You've heard about how physical it is and how there's fighting as well. Fighting's not as commonplace anymore, but it is something that you hear it all the time. You see people put on social media, went to my first hockey game, I'm hooked. Because it is just completely different. It's high energy, high entertainment for the full 60 minutes, and it's just a really, really exciting game to watch.
And just a final one from me. I see you've got 2 shirts up behind you. If you had to get a shirt off one of the players now, I know obviously you work with the club as well. If you had any player that you think is the best player at the club, who would it be? Not to put you on the spot.
in terms of the best player at the club, it's easy to say Joey Martin because he is one of the greatest players in the league. He's one of the greatest players in Devils history. But for me, from last season, it would probably be Sam Jardine, one of the defensemen. I thought he started off well, and he just grew as the season went on. By the end of the season, he was probably the most reliable two-way defenseman they had on the team. His skating really stood out. He's really solid on the puck. His offensive numbers weren't as good as the likes of Gleason Fournier and Sean McMonagle, but he got involved whenever he needed to. I thought that he really epitomised exactly what it means to be a Cardiff Devils defenseman, and he's definitely one that I'm waiting and hoping they announce to be coming back next season.
Well, of course, many good players at the Devils in the last few seasons. Thank you very much to Ollie for coming on. Sam Jardine, a great player for the club. As we mentioned, Stephen Dixon was the re-signing. Maybe Sam Jardine is in the pipeline. It's great to hear people talk passionately about a subject where they know so much. And as you say, we learn a lot from those sort of things. Thank you to Ollie. Next up, we have our main guest, or the sort of our longest chat of the week. The guest which we've had lined up for a couple of weeks now. We're delighted to say Joey Haddad has joined us for the podcast. I don't know how many times I'm going to bang the drum to say thank you, but a huge thank you to both the club, to Todd Kalman for helping sort out speaking to Joey, and to Joey himself, obviously, for taking half hour out of his time to speak to us. Without further ado, here's our chat with Joey on Cardiff Devils and the city itself.
You're one of the sort of longest serving players now at the Devils, a fan favourite, it's fair to say. What is it about the club which you love so much?
I think it's just, they run a really professional organization, with a really family-oriented atmosphere. And what I mean by that is, as far as the off-ice staff, the owners, everybody is involved with each other. Everybody, it's caring. It's, everybody's willing to do something to, help somebody else out. And it's really just been basically like a home away from home, not only away from the ring. Like, me and my wife have a place here and stuff like that. But, just getting to go to work every day with the same people, working hard, trying to win championships. And, when you have success and you're treated the right way, it definitely makes it a place you'd like to come back to. And that's how I feel here at Cardiff.
I know you recently signed a new deal, as well as the other Joey at the club, Joey Martin. He said when he re-signed that the club basically feels like a family. It sounds like you replicate that sentiment.
Yeah, for sure. And, me and Joe have played together, and he's one of those family members. I played against him here and there when we were younger in our professional careers, and then, almost 7 years ago now, we became teammates and built a really good friendship, and we're really good buddies to this day. So, that's a good example of just that family-orientated kind of professionalism that, isn't always easy to find in competitive sports.
How important is that, I guess, spine of the team to the success you've had in recent years?
I think it's added up to be a big factor, I guess, in our success each season. The more players you can bring back from the previous season, the quicker you can kind of bring the new team together, and everybody gets on the same page as far as team systems and tactics and all this stuff. The last couple of years, I think it's just been 4 guys in, 4 guys out, something like that, with retirements happen, and sometimes players leave and go to other teams, but for the most part, we've had the core group back year in, year out, and I think that allows us to kind of, start the season and get to where we want to be quicker as a team. The way we play the game, our strategy, and if you bring 20 new guys who've never played on that team or who have never played with each other, it's definitely going to take them a lot longer to be unified. So I think it's been a big strength for the Devils.
Andrew Lord, who of course when you joined was a player for the club. How was it playing alongside him and then being a player sort of under his coaching?
It's funny if you know Andrew at all. He whether he's the coach or not, he's pretty vocal, and he demands a lot. and he wants to go out and win at all costs. So I've played with him, 10, 11 years ago in North America. Then we spent a few years apart, and then we joined back up here in Cardiff 7 years ago now. So I feel like whether he's coaching or playing, he still brings the same attitude and intensity, and the end goal is the same for him. So I think it was tough when he played and he had the responsibilities of coaching. And now that he's coaching, he's really found a groove, and he's very good at it. He's a good motivator. So I mean, for me, I see little differences here and there, but I think he's a little more freed up just being the coach.
I think it's fair to say, and I don't think Noah will mind me saying this, the hockey has become something which I've become massively fond of in the last 4 or 5 years. I can't profess to have been a huge fan longer than that. I think the success the club has had has massively, attracted more fans. If you were trying to sell the sport to someone who didn't go down or didn't know as much about it, what would you say to try and encourage someone to get down to the Viola?
That's a good one. I kind of run into this, scenario here and there throughout the years. I would just say it's so fast paced and exciting that even though if you don't know the rules, you don't understand, say, the strategies and stuff like that, the main thing is when you go to a hockey game, you're going to be entertained. There's going to be crashing into the boards. There's going to be, a little rubber puck shot 100 miles an hour. Maybe there's a fight. You might see Mark Lewis beat somebody up. But yeah, you're definitely bound to be entertained. Our pregame show is great. Our intermissions, they do shows when they clean the ice pad, and it's just. And I think above all that, it's a family atmosphere. So kids love it. It's fast paced. It keeps them kind of concentrated on the game. Whereas some other sports, maybe there's slow parts and it can get a little boring at times. But the ice hockey is it's pretty interesting because it is so unique that you're actually skating on ice. So I would just say, don't worry about knowing the sport or anything like that. Just go check it out, and I think you'll be hooked just off that.
I'm sold.
Have you been to many? I know you've been to a couple, haven't you?
I mean, to one, but that was years and years ago now. But I haven't been here recently. Joey's told me now to go back into it. Definitely.
Yeah, you'll have to get down. The new arena is pretty nice too.
How's the experience of playing in the European competition been in the last few years?
Yeah, it's definitely been challenging. The best teams in Europe, and the Swedish league has pretty big budget, so they shop around and they get some really good players, and they've been first class organizations for a long time now. You see it in the way they play, and then you get to tour their arena and meet some of their staff and kind of learn how they do things and the way they train and stuff like that. It's definitely inspiring. It's motivating. And yeah, you see the little differences of a team of 20 hockey players that for London. We match up against them pretty well, but yeah, last year it was tough. It seemed as the game went on, they got a little better and we got a little tired maybe, but like I said, there's always room for improvement. So I mean, it's great. It's a great experience. It's a great time and late summer, traveling around Europe, seeing some cities that you haven't been to before, seeing some great arenas and playing in front of a 16,000 seat arena in Bern or something like that is pretty exciting. And then the competition, the level of competition definitely goes way up. Like I said, those guys are all very good hockey teams, and I think the last few years we've played the winners of the whole tournament. Years ago it was Vakwa from Sweden, and last year it was Frölunda, another Swedish team. So we've got a taste of the best teams in Europe, and I think every year, it is tough. We've gotten really close and haven't made it past that first round, but we always bring back, some positivity, come closer as a team, and we really get our competition level high, and then we come back to our league and we have some good success. So I think overall we've all really benefited off it, and I think as an organization we really enjoy being a part of the CHL.
Last season, the season which was sort of just ended, being cut a bit short, was one of the most exciting seasons. You know, and I've only been watching it for 4 or 5 years, but even fans I've spoken to have said, in terms of how close the title race was going to be, how disappointing was it to sort of see it cut short?
Oh, I know. I think it was only about 2 weeks we lost to. It's a shame, you know. Obviously, there's bigger issues in the world, but yeah, just like you said, it was a great year all around. I think, you know, the league has gotten better and better every year, and the difference from the top team to the bottom team is being narrowed every year. And I think, you know, this year anybody could have beat anybody either night. It was that competitive, and it would have been nice to see the last couple weeks how they would have went down, and then you know, the exciting playoffs in Nottingham was always a good time. So I mean, I'm hoping everybody's just that much more excited for this upcoming season, and we can kind of get over what we missed out on this year.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of fans who are a bit disappointed because you know, you looked set to go on and win the league, which you narrowly missed out on the last day last year. So, well, hopefully we can get back to that again.
Yeah.
Again, that you mentioned Nottingham, that weekend's last season when he went on to win it was properly what hooked me. I went up there and covered it, and that was the hook for me. I'd already enjoyed it, but that really sunk it in. That's a really special weekend, isn't it? I don't know anything like that in sport where they put fan groups in one stadium and just a whole weekend of hockey. You know, some of them are there supporting teams that aren't playing. Is there anything like that you've seen in world hockey?
I can't recall anything either, and just it really shows the power of our fans in our league. You know, you mentioned 8 team fan bases there, but I actually think all 10 go. And even if, you know, their team isn't in the playoffs, they're just there to support the game, support the league, and you know, create a fun and exciting atmosphere, not only for the players but for the fans as well. You know, that weekend there, it's something that's talked about all year, and people just really enjoy getting together and getting to watch some hockey. And you know, when you can have a championship game come down to the last few minutes and you know, a game-winning goal, that's kind of, you know, why you play the sport. It's exciting, and to have a trophy on the line, you know, that's huge. So it's really nice to see how all our fans come out, and I think, you know, almost they love it more than we do. So, and that's what you need. You need that dual support, players and fans.
Not only was the hockey great, but the celebrations afterwards. I can't remember what the bar's called next to the Motor Point, but you were all in there, players, coaches, staff, everyone, just dancing with the fans. Like, that's what's so nice for me about the hockey is you don't see that in the football and the rugby. You know, the players, if they win a game, that's it. They're insular or in hidden bars. You guys are on the stage, you know, dancing with everyone with crates of beer. You've got such a good connection with the fans, haven't you?
Yeah, and you know, I think, you know, hockey players in general are pretty social. You know, we enjoy talking, we enjoy, you know, sharing a drink and sharing a celebration, say. And I think last year was the you know, upper echelon of that scenario where, you know, we were excited. End of the year, we just won a big trophy, and I think is it the Salt Box, maybe?
Yes, that's
something
it.
Like
yes,
that.
yes, it is. Yeah, it is the Salt Box. That's right.
Yeah, so what a night that was. We were on stage. We had the Cub guys were dancing. I think our captain Joey Martin might have even crowd surfed.
He did.
But yeah, we were heroes that night. And again, you know, we owe it all to our fans because they put us up on the pedestal, and they make us, you know, they support us and make us feel great. And it definitely makes our job easier and more enjoyable when we go out and play well for them.
We'll have one more on the hockey, and then we'll move on to Cardiff, because I don't want to bore Niall with me and you talking, reminiscing Nottingham.
I'm living things, so it's okay.
I could talk about that weekend for a long time because it was so much fun. This season coming up, then we'll just touch on it quickly. as I mentioned, last year was ridiculously close with the Steelers, coming back into it, the Giants. Are you expecting it to be, again, as tight as last season?
I think so. I mean, the way the league has been moving, like I touched on a few minutes ago, the level of competition is getting higher, and every team is raising the bar. Every team is getting better every year, and with the tight title races from this past season and the previous few seasons, I think it's just a sign of things to come.
We'll move off the hockey now. We'll move on to Cardiff. You've opted to spend lockdown here, haven't you?
Yeah, so me and my wife live here most of the year. We have a place here. My wife has a job. And then when all this kind of happened, a lot of my teammates were leaving pretty quickly, quicker than normal, to get back home and get safe. But yeah, we were kind of set up here. We do have a supporting community. Lots of friends and around the city, and it just kind of made sense for us to stay here. My wife being furloughed for a short while, and then started to work from home and stuff like that. So, especially with the travel restrictions, I mean, I think that 14-day quarantine would kill a 2 or 3 week vacation pretty quick. So, we're kind of just being patient right now. We do want to get home for a visit, just to see friends and family back home. And we're just kind of listening to the news and waiting for some restrictions to ease and try to make a plan from there.
Surprisingly, even though this is a Cardiff-based podcast, you're not the first Canadian we've had on. We had a former baseball player on last week, which was a bit of a surprise to us. And,
oh, really?
Yeah, he used to play for the Blue Jays. I'm not sure if you're a baseball fan yourself.
I like the Jays for sure.
Oh, you like the Jays? Well, you might have heard of him. Scott Richmond. He used to be the pitcher for the Blue Jays going back a few years. But great to chat to him. And we were sort of joking afterwards. There's a bit of a stereotype that Canadian people are the nicest people, and we like to say that that Welsh people are equally nice. Do you see similarities between the two countries?
Big time. I think the landscape is very similar in a lot of ways. I grew up on Cape Breton Island, Nova Scotia, which is on the east coast, surrounded by water. So it's nice. I live in the Bay Area, and it's nice to just be on a coastline, or to be able to drive, up the M4 a little bit to, the Pembrokeshire is beautiful, and you don't even have to go that far. Porthcawl is great, and really enjoy the landscape around here. And then, the people, I find similarities too. Friendly, like you said, outgoing, and kind of, like to chat, maybe have a drink and kind of share some stories and stuff like that. But it was, ever since we got here, it was nice and easy to just fit right in. And, I still haven't learned Welsh, I have to admit, and I don't know if I ever will. It's a tough one. But me and my wife really like it here, and all my teammates that come in town really enjoy it too.
Have you brought friends and family over as well?
Yeah, my parents came over twice this past season. They usually try to get over before the holidays, and then maybe later in the year when we're in a title race or a Challenge Cup final or something like that. My sister's been over, and then my mother-in-law, my sister-in-law have been over. So yeah, we try to, it's an open door policy here for friends and family from back home. So as many as we can get over, I'd like to show them around, let them watch the hockey, and just show them the city. And everybody loves it, and everybody says the same thing of how familiar it is back home.
Well, that's nice to hear, isn't it, mate?
Very nice, that is, yeah.
Have you seen much of the other sport that the city has to offer?
Yep, I've been to. I went to the World Cup of rugby that was here. I think that was 4 or 5 years ago now. 4 years ago.
2015.
2015, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, is it
So
that
that
long
was
ago?
pretty
Wow.
Exciting game, Australia and Fiji. I've been to see the Blues play a couple times. I've seen the Bluebirds play numerous times. I think they're back down now, aren't they?
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
But yeah, so I'm a fan of getting out to sea and do whatever I can. I actually went, me and my teammate Steve Dixon and Sam Jardine went to the World Darts Tour.
Yes.
Yes.
I can't think of the proper title, but what a show that was. It was at the Motor Point Arena. I've never been to a darts competition, but it was quite the show.
That must be an experience.
Yeah, it was. I recommend it to anybody who wants to go have a drink and be entertained. It was quite impressive.
I was going to say, I think a lot of the people who go to the darts aren't there for the darts. It's one of those one of those occasions where people are there for the drinking occasion more than the sporting occasion.
I think so too.
A great occasion, as you say, a good day out, but a long stretch away from what the hockey's like. But no, a good day out nonetheless, and I'm glad you enjoyed. I think that's it for me.
I was going to say, what's the best thing about Cardiff since you've been living here, but I think you sort of answered that with.
And you know what? I think it's a collaboration of everything. It's tough to pick one thing because I think that's what makes the city great. You have the quieter Bay Area. Lots of bike trails, running trails, walking trails, and parks. And then if you're looking for food and drink or something like that, the city is great. I like how the city center is, it's tight. No cars driving through it. And it's really easy to kind of bar hop or look for restaurants or shop and do it all together. It's nice and easy. So
just before you go, we've got we quickly quiz all of the guests we get on with a few sort of questions about their chosen sports. If you don't mind humouring us for a quick moment. First one up is, who did you beat to win the 2017 Challenge Cup final?
2017. That was at home. My parents were here. Was it Sheffield?
It was Sheffield again, yeah.
It was Nottingham we lost to the in-between, yeah.
Yes, that's correct, yes. Question number 2. Obviously, you've been at the club 7 years now. A few players, I know, Bouncy, Martin, joined at the same time as you. Can you name the only 2 players at the club who've been there for a year longer than you?
Mark Richardson and Josh Batch.
Yes, correct, yes. They're the long stayers at the moment. Number 3, last year, going back to Nottingham to reminisce a bit, in that final, that game against Belfast, which was a fantastic game, who scored the winning goal?
Gleason Fournier.
Yeah, no doubts at all. This is confidence in the answers.
Can't forget that one.
That was one of the best goals I've ever seen as well, which was incredible. Despite being cut short, this was actually your highest scoring season for the Devils. Right. Do you know how many goals and assists you got?
Yeah, I had 29 goals, 28 assists, I think, in Elite League play.
That's very, very good. That's correct.
He knows his stats.
He knows his stuff, yeah, he knows his stuff. And the final one, this one's a bit harder. We always throw a bit of a more difficult one in, but based off your answers to the first 4, you might well know. How many of the current Cardiff Devils squad were born in Canada?
Current Devils? Okay, let me see.
So born in Canada, not necessarily representing Canada.
Jeez, it's a lot.
It is a fair few, yeah.
I think it has to be. We have. I could take more time and maybe find out for sure, but I'll just throw out I'll say 16.
16 is a bit too high. It's 13. 13 of the current guys. Not a bad guess considering.
Yeah,
I'm sure if we gave you 5 minutes, you would have been able to whittle it down to all of them. But yeah, brilliant, Joey. 4 out of 5 puts you. I think only one of our guests has topped that. So you're in second place. You're in second place on our quiz leaderboard. Thank you very, very much for joining us. We really, really appreciate it. Good luck when the season restarts. I'll be down there definitely for work. So hopefully I will catch you then, and stay safe for the rest of lockdown.
Yeah, stay safe,
Joey. Likewise, guys. Thanks for having me.
Well, as we said, best of luck to Joey for next season, and thank you very much for coming on. Also very good at the quizzes, reminded me of when we spoke to Andy Campbell, and the knowledge is fantastic.
Yeah, we continue to put him on the spot like we all do with all our guests, he did very well. 4 out of 5.
4 out of 5, and I was impressed to see he knew sort of exactly his own stats. He clearly follows that as the season goes on to know exactly 29 goals and 28 assists. I thought that was brilliant. I have no doubt that he would have worked out how many Canadians there were on the team if we gave him enough time. You could just see his gears ticking in his head as he was counting everyone up. But brilliant. Thank you very much to Joey. And our final guest, we're going to go straight into it. We do all of our chats over video, so if you want to see any of the full conversations, to see the people's faces, they're on YouTube. Unfortunately, our video with Joey Haddad hasn't worked properly due to technical difficulties and the connection, so there won't be a video of Joey. However, there will be the interview with our next guest. Steve King, the owner, joins us, and it looked absolutely lovely, didn't it, when we called him? He seemed to have the most lovely weather, which we've seemed to have lost in the last few days.
Yeah, it looks beautiful out there in Calgary.
Absolutely, yeah. So we were delighted to have Steve on. He got in touch at the last minute to come on the show. So thank you very much to Steve. And if you want to see the full video of him, that will be on YouTube at some point over the weekend. But without further ado, here is our final conflab of the day with Steve King.
Hey there, how are you?
I'm very good. How are you?
Excellent, thank you.
It looks lovely where you are.
Well, it was really warm yesterday. It was 27. I think it's a little cooler and overcast today, but still pretty good. Still in the 20s.
Very nice indeed. Thank you for coming on. As you know, I've got into the ice hockey recently. I think you would admit yourself, Niall, it's not the sport that you're as familiar with.
To be honest with you, Steve, I'm not acquainted to ice hockey as Phil, so I'm a bit edgy with the rules and all that. But I just wanted to know, how did you get into the purchase of Cardiff Devils? How you got involved in it?
Yeah, I've known Todd Kelman. So I live in a community here that same one that Todd grew up in, and so Todd's sister is one of our best friends, and in fact lives right across the street from us. So I've known Todd since he was a young guy. We were both young guys, and when he was with the Belfast Giants, he was able to organize an exhibition match against the Boston Bruins for the Giants in Belfast. The Bruins were on their way to a game in the Czech Republic, I believe, to start an NHL season. It's probably somewhere between 10 and 15 years ago. And so Todd called us all up, all of his friends that he knew that loved hockey and maybe had enough money to travel to the UK to see a game. And it just sounded like a fun thing to do. So me and two other guys, one of them was Brian Parker, who's in the group of owners with the Devils. And so we flew to Ireland and played some golf and watched the exhibition match and just fell in love with the whole scene. I couldn't believe, you come from Canada and you think, hockey's like football in the UK, where it's part of who you are as you grow up. And I couldn't believe the passion of the fans in the UK towards hockey. Obviously, it's a small sport in the UK, but the fans that go to the games, they are so passionate. They've dedicated their life to it, it seems. So it just seemed like something I wanted to get involved with because I love the sport and I love sports in general. I'm a sports junkie. So a few years later, Todd was back home here and we were having a few pints on my back deck right here, and most of my best ideas are over a few pints. And Todd's a really good marketer, and he also is really good at organizing teams and making sure that everybody is treated well and everything is put in place to allow a team to win. And I said to him, you should be more than an employee, you should be an owner. So let's find a team and I'll back you and cut you in for a good chunk of the equity if you agree to run it, and let's have some fun. So that's kind of how it all started.
And then what made you pick Cardiff? Because there's a lot of teams that you could have picked.
Yeah, there were a few options for us, but Cardiff had kind of a great combination of fan base. It's one of the the older kind of more kind of established fan bases in the league. The city itself, it's always ranked as one of the top places to live in the UK. Higher standard of living than maybe a place like Belfast, and then the new arena that was just starting to be built at the time. So everything kind of lined up.
When you first got involved, was it the blue tent or was that before?
No. We our first couple of years were in the BBT, which it was a bit of a shocker. I have to say, coming from Calgary here, we would have a couple of dozen arenas that would be, better than the BBT, obviously. And so going over there and saying, okay, a professional team plays here, that was a little odd. But it didn't take more than an hour to fall in love with the place, and it was our home, and the fans loved it, and it gave us a huge advantage as a team to play out of a little place like that, because the fans were right on top of the players, and the ice surface itself was smaller than usual, and so it was, anytime you have a unique circumstance and the way you play, it usually favors the home team. So I did love the BBT, and I miss it, but I like the Ice Arena Wales a lot better.
I was going to say, I mean, the Viola's lovely, isn't it? It's a really, really nice building, great place for hockey.
It really is. No, it's a great facility, and really for our league, we'd like probably maybe another 1,000 seats in it. But I love the fact that it's sold out or almost sold out for every single game. I think some of the other arenas in the league are a little too big, and you don't get that atmosphere, and you don't get that buzz around the city that it's a hard ticket to get. So I'd much rather have it sold out than be a tough ticket.
I've said the sentence, or started sentences with the reason I've got to love hockey so many times today, but one of the things I loved about when you guys came over back in January was, especially when you compare it to football, you see owners of football clubs like Abramovich at Chelsea sitting in a box, hidden away at the top of the stadium. And then you guys came over back in January and you were in Block 13 with the flags and the drums and starting all the chants, as if you're the biggest fans of the club. And I just think that's a lovely thing about the sport over here.
Well, and it's because we are the biggest fans of the club. That's all I am as a fan. Todd runs the team, and Lordo runs the on-ice product, and we just get to be fans, and we get to be the owners that we all thought owners should be when we're fans of our home clubs here in Canada. So why wouldn't you? And that's something we've done right from the start. I remember the very first year, 2014, we came over for the Challenge Cup finals in Sheffield, and they came to us with the instructions on which box to sit in, and we're up there, and we're four regular guys, so all the owners are in their suits, and we're in our Devils jerseys, and we brought over these kind of fake hockey helmets that Budweiser made here in Canada, that whenever your team scored a goal, the red light at the top of the helmet would turn on. We're wearing these, and so we spent the first, I think, 3 minutes in the box, and we just looked over at Todd and said, look, this just isn't us. We're having no fun here. The fun's down there where all of our fans are, so we got out of there and got into where the fans were. It was it's been the same ever since. A bunch of the fans, they email me directly, and I've gotten to know a lot of them personally now, because go over there 2 or 3 times a year, and it's been great.
You took the bus up to that game, didn't you, with the fans?
Yeah, it was a tough one. We being an owner of an out of the country team is not for the faint of heart. We go pretty hard when we go there, and they're usually just 3-day trips. So to have a 9-hour flight, which typically gets us in at about 10 in the morning UK time, so you've kind of missed a whole night of sleep, and then you just go, and everybody wants to have a pint, and it's tough sledding, but yeah, we recovered enough to have some fun on that bus.
Absolutely love that. That's brilliant.
This season, obviously, was cut short. I imagine you were quite disappointed because it looked destined for a league title. Obviously, we don't know what would have happened, but the decision was taken by the league. How did you feel when that was announced?
I was shocked, to be honest. I thought it was a very easy decision from a whole bunch of different viewpoints to award the title, which now we're seeing other leagues now do that have officially cancelled. And the reason that the league had at the time was, you never know what would happen in the handful of games that were cancelled. But the point is they were cancelled. You don't need to speculate. The season ended. Who was in first place when the season ended? It was very clear. So that argument doesn't hold water as far as I'm concerned. And then the other thing they said was that other leagues weren't doing it. Well, I think that's a dubious way of making your decision, is to just see what other people are doing, especially when most other sports leagues in the UK didn't actually cancel the rest of the season. They just postponed it and were hoping to do it later. That's why they didn't award a champion. And the several that have now cancelled did award their championship. And we're a league, unlike most in hockey, that awards the title based on regular season standings, not on a playoffs. And when you've played more than 450 regular season games, there was only a handful left. It seems to be a very tough judgment, but at the end of the day, we move on. I think, as I've said to our players and our staff, we know, we know what happened. We know that we were in first, and that's 3 firsts and a tie for first in the last 4 years. That's pretty damn good.
Absolutely. Well, you just have to go and do it and prove it again next season.
We have no problem doing that. The rest of the league knows what happened, so it doesn't matter what, as I said, it doesn't matter what the guys in suits say.
You if the season had have ended when it would, you would have picked Sheffield to the title. I remember when you were over and you were doing a sort of a fan Q&A earlier in the season. I think it would be fair to say that you are fairly spoken about how much you like the rivalry with Sheffield.
I do, yeah. No, it's. I love the fact that when we came in 6 years ago, they were the boss. They ruled the league and have the biggest budget, and to have that air of superiority that they love to hold over the rest of the league, and I love it. That's that's the group you want to beat, and I think it's great for the league, and it just does me so much good when we beat them.
And you watch. I mean, you watch as much of it as you can. Obviously, it's a different time zone, but I guess it works in your favour because we're ahead.
It's brilliant. Yeah, it starts at noon here for a 7 o'clock game. So you get up and do whatever you need to do in the morning, and get 12 o'clock start. And yeah, we watch pretty much every game. And if there's a Flames game at 6 or 7 our time, then that's a heck of a day.
Hockey-tastic. I mean, you've been over a handful of times each season. Have you seen a change in the league over that period?
It's been massive, like absolutely massive, and that's still something that we're combating. Actually, when we recruit players, they still think that the EIHL is like it was 10 years ago, where someone could come in. You look at Paul Bissonnette, longtime NHLer. He came over when the NHL was in lockout and absolutely dominated. And I can guarantee you he would not dominate in this league. Yeah. And so a lot of people still see that, kind of a fourth line tough guy in the NHL going over and scoring 2 points a game. No, it's a completely different league where we see in the Champions Hockey League every year how we do. Like we won home and away against one of the best teams from the Austrian League last year. That's never been done before. Like I truly believe that the top of our league would be very competitive in many of the top leagues in Europe.
Our other guest this week was Joey Haddad. How great has he been? I mean, it goes without saying that he's been phenomenal for the club, but he seems to get better each year.
Yeah, Joey had a really tough year the year before, where he had a hip injury that was really difficult to heal, and missed most of the end of the season. And a big reason why Belfast was able to tie us at the end was Joey being out for that whole time. But he worked really hard over the off season and during the season on a new kind of health and fitness program that he developed, and the results were amazing. And with any athlete, you just get that confidence, and it just feeds on itself. And you could see how confident Joey was the entire season. It was phenomenal. But Joey's about more than just on ice as well. Him and his wife Kirsten are really, they're real kind of linchpins of the kind of the family culture that we wanted to develop with the Devils. And they just couldn't be better in the community and with the other teams and their significant others as well. It's been phenomenal to have both Joeys here with us for all 6 years.
Have you set a plan? I mean, obviously there's no date yet, but have you got a plan for coming over next season?
It's interesting, with the COVID-19, Canada, and especially Western Canada where I live, is essentially over it. I think in all of Alberta, which is where Calgary is, we had 13 cases yesterday. We've got, basically anywhere west of Toronto doesn't have the virus anymore, which is really great. So I think we're in a different mindset here now than maybe you are still there. We're kind of at the point where, okay, let's get going here.
Yeah, we're not quite at that stage yet.
No, but you know what? It turns quickly. When you're still in the weeds, it's tough to see how there could be sports being played. But, give it another month, and you'll be surprised. People have needs. The mental welfare of society is an important part too, and sports is a big part of that. So obviously we can't put our fans and our players in harm's way if there's still a significant risk in October. But I am kind of hopeful that the UK will be in a place where that'll be possible, and maybe there will be some advancements in some drugs that will make people feel a lot more comfortable about being in social settings.
I think you speak for ice hockey fans and sports fans alike when you say that. I think it would be great to get back watching live sport, but obviously safety is the most important thing. Steve, thank you very much for chatting with us. Appreciate you taking time out of your day. When you're over next, you'll have to drop us a line, let us know, and we'll come and get you that pint at the Viola.
That sounds good. I'm getting thirsty.
Amazing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much for listening to our Cardiff Devils special of Capital Conflab. We've thoroughly enjoyed doing it. That beer will definitely be waiting on us, Steve, when you come over next time. I feel like your sentiments on hockey and sport in the world in general is a very fitting way to end the episode, so we won't add any more to that. We will see you next week on Capital Conflab. Thank you for listening to the latest episode of Capital Conflab. If you have a story you want featured, then get in touch. But for now, until next time, you've been listening to Capital Conflab.